you. I'm mighty glad you dropped in. And say you're in for a real treat, too. A group of your radio favorites happened in on me a while ago, and I know you're going to like the little show that they fixed up for you. Okay, kid.
I was walking down the street, down the street, down the street, where a little gal I used to meet under the silver moon. Buffalo gal is coming out back, coming out back, coming out back. Buffalo gal is coming out back, and we're riding the moon. Got a wooden leg, got a wooden leg, got a wooden leg. I guess that's the reason that they call her Peg. Well, tell me it's coming outside. Buffalo gal is coming outside, coming outside, coming outside. Buffalo gal is coming outside, and to line of
By golly, Otto, you're just the feller we're looking for.
Why, what do you mean?
Why, we need a master of ceremonies for our little show here.
How do you do that pronouncing business here, anyway?
Simple. Well, certainly all you have to do is just say, folks, I know you're all anxious to meet two of the prettiest little gals in 48 counties. Our little sunbonnet girls, Connie and Bonnie.
And I'm Bonnie, so I must be Connie. When I was single, I used to be afraid no one would ever love me as I died so made. Now that I am married and my husband is so sweet, so that awful snoring and those sleepy guysy feet. Yes, yes, I wish I was a single girl again. Oh, yes, I wish I was a single girl again. When I was single, I had fellers by the score. Now the only guy on my door. Now that I am married, I'm as lawful wed as white. Do you think I'd do it over? No, sirree, not on your life. Yes, yes, I wish I was a single girl again. Oh, yes, I wish I was a single girl again. When I was single, I was pretty jealous too of all the married women with their babies so good too. And now I have a baby, she's as sweet as can be had. But what a disappointment, she looks just like her dad. Yes, yes, I wish I was a single girl again. Oh, yes, I wish I was a single girl again. Oh, well, this was only just a song. We two are really single, we were kidding you along. A kind and loving husband is awful hard to find. Do you think that we'd get married? Well, we really wouldn't mind.
All right,
Gee, thanks a whole lot for that nice applause, fellas. Say, where do you suppose Dolly Holmes went?
Dolly? Yeah, where
Yeah,
did
where'd
Dolly
Dolly
go?
go? What? Hey, Dolly, Dolly, wake up. Come on.
I just had the awfulest dream.
Well, tell us about it, Dolly.
Come on, I'll tell you all about it.
One you ought to know. I dreamed that the devil drove me down below. But every time I turn around, I could hear the devil say,
Oh, I am the devil. You better get out of my way.
I dreamed I heard a racket deep down in the ground. I dreamed it was the devil trying to chase me down. But every time I turn around, I could hear the devil say,
What do you think? I am the devil. You better get out of my way.
turn on your steam and shovel in your I'm getting cold. But every time I turn around, I could hear that devil say,
What's he say? I am the devil, you better get out of my way.
Then I woke up and found it wasn't true. But every time I turn around, I could hear the devil say,
I am the devil, you better get out of my way.
It's time to introduce the next song, Otto.
It is?
Uh-huh. It's time to tell the folks that the famous Prairie Ramblers are gonna sing Timber Trail.
Timber, o'er the mountain high. Let the Romans ride through timber when the day is done. By the Kemper's let me lie and dream of timber when the day is done. Let me lie and dream of timber. Tall timbers calling as the echoes ring. All nature sings a song along the timber trail. Blue shadows falling round the canyon veil, where the whispering pines entwine along the timber trail. High in the sky above, a love song of a tree will blend and win its way out on the breeze. Tall timbers calling as the echoes ring. All nature sings a song along the timber trail. Timber. In the sky above, a love song of the tree will blend and win its way out on the breeze. Tall timbers calling and the echoes ring. All nature sings a song along the timber trail. The timber trail. You reckon our customers would enjoy hearing some real honest-to-goodness yodeling?
Well, if they're anything like me, they would, Chick. Good yodeling really hits the spot.
Well, that means our little Swiss miss, Christine.
By the Dalen Hill flows the water mill. Three-o-lo-lady, highly-o-lady. By the running brook, we all but love this brook. O-lady, o-lady. And from all else apart lives my own sweetheart. O-lady, o-lady. I live to reach with person fond and sweet caress. O-lady, o-lady. Three-o-lo-lo-lady, o-lady, Out was there in love's delight, our trout we did fly. Oh lady, Sally, oh lady, by the running brook we all but loved her so. Oh lady, really like a dream, so heavenly as it seemed. Oh, lady, oh, lady. It was like an angel's call, this bubbling waterfall. Oh, lady, oh, lady. 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 Oh,
Pardon me, little lady, but are you looking for someone?
I'm Genevieve, and I want to recite some poetry.
Oh, well, you're the sweetheart of the show, little Genevieve.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you better sing a song for folks, don't you?
All right.
Well, what are you going to sing for them?
I can sing a nursery song, Uncle Chick.
Well, all right. Step up and take another nice little bow, and then go right ahead.
All right. The farmer in the field, the farmer in the field. Hi-ho, the merry-o, the farmer in the field. London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. London Bridge is falling down. My fair lady, go in and out the window, go in and out the window, go in and out the window. As we have done before, nothing can
Hey, Genevieve, wait a minute. Hey, stop, cut it out. What are you doing?
I'm doing the boogie-woogie.
You was doing the boogie-woogie. Well, now, don't you know you're not supposed to swing a nursery rhyme? Well, certainly not. Now, let me show you how to do it. This is the way we wash our clothes. Wash, wash. That's
This
it.
is the way we wash our clothes so early in the morning. This is the way we darn ourselves, darn ourselves, darn ourselves. This is the way we darn ourselves so early in the morning. This is the way we wash it, wash it, wash it. This is the way we wash it so early in the morning.
What's the matter, honey? Did you forget it? Well, did you brush your clothes?
I brush my coat,
Did you brush your teeth?
I brush my teeth.
And did you brush your hair?
I ain't got no hair.
Well, what's the matter? Did you forget it? Well, what's the matter with you? Every time you come out here to sing a song, you forget the words. I don't know what I'm going to do with you. What's the matter?
Well, friends and neighbors, the boys and girls hope that you've all enjoyed their little party. And as for me, well, I hope you'll come in and make yourself at home, for we've got a mighty fine line of Goodyear tires and batters and accessories we'd like to show you. Goodbye, everybody, it's time for us to go. We're mighty glad that you were here to see our little show.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Skip Alzheimer of AV Geeks. Wow, my hair is crazy today. Well, whatever. Life. I collect old educational films and other types of films and show them to you, to your delight, and for some of you, this last film, your horror. That film was called Goodyear Frolics, and it was a promotional film made by Goodyear, and my guess is that this was made to be shown at Goodyear dealerships as a way to bring people in. That you would have like a night, a special night of popular country western music. I think I figured out that most of these performers were on the National Barn Dance, which was a radio broadcast on WLS in Chicago, maybe? Anyways, so this was a way to bring people out. It captures kind of an interesting popular music trend at the time, which was there was a lot of radio stuff like this going on. There was the Louisiana Hayride. There was, I mean, just the roots of kind of popular music at that time. I'm not a big fan of Ken Burns, but actually watching his country music documentary series was really great because it talks about the origins of this and the Carter family and radio. And so, anyways, there's a lot there that's really great. Yodeling, don't like it, but I love it. And I tried to do it once, and it's not easy. So I have a great deal of respect for people that yodel. Speaking of hair, here's an advertisement for kind of a tiny infomercial for Lilt Home Permanence.
Hi, I'm Loretta Downs, and today we have a treat in store for you. A lesson in hairstyling by that famous New York hairstylist, Julius Caruso. You know, when you go to Julius's salon to have your hair done, you don't know who's going to be under the next dryer. It might be a Hollywood celebrity, a Broadway star, a socialite, or maybe even a duchess or two. But even if you never get to his salon, you can still have the benefit of his famous advice. Because Julius is the hairstyling consultant for one of the largest manufacturers of home permanents, Lilt. The little instruction booklet, you know, that comes along with every push-button home permanent waving kit, that's Julius's work. It's right from his collection. And now let's meet him, Julius Caruso.
Hello, Loretta.
Hi, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. It's nice being here.
Well, what are you going to talk to us about today?
Well, we're going to go into 3 areas today. One is the roller arrangement, the brush out, and the permanent underneath.
I see. Well, I also see that you have our gal here set up with rollers. Is that where we start?
Yes. You'll notice here I'm using 3 size rollers. The first size roller is what I call a medium-sized roller, which I use along the hairline. Then I increase the diameter of the roller as I go into the head. Third size roller I call a stovepipe. Is enormous in size, the largest you can possibly get. I use at the crown of the head. Then I use pin curls around the cheeks and around the base of the neck. And with this, you get a nice lifting, blousy line that hugs the face, hugs the neck.
Uh-huh. Well, what about the placement of rollers?
Well, that's very easily done by going to any newsstand, and there are many magazines that show you roller arrangements and how to brush out hair. And I also have a booklet that I just put out that's in every package of a new home permanent. Mm-hmm. But I think most important of all is how you pick up the hair to put a roller in a head. I can show you very easily on your head if you don't mind.
All righty.
Instead of just taking the hair and straight parting it and putting the hair on the roller like so, I zigzag the hair out. This is what I mean by zigzagging. See, I make a jagged line, and then I put the hair on the roller. And when you comb this out, you don't see all the little separations between the hair.
Well, what about brush-out techniques?
Well, brushing out is a very, very important factor in hairstyling. After you go through the great effort of placing curls in properly and rollers, then you must vigorously brush through a head of hair so that the hair doesn't show any sort of separations.
And vigorously doesn't hurt the hair at all?
No, as a matter of fact, it just makes the hair flow into one another.
Oh. Well, I've heard you talk about back combing and back brushing. Would you tell us about them and
Yes.
what's the difference?
Yes, back brushing is to get certain effects. This is what I call back brushing. Then I very gently take the brush over the top surface, and it doesn't allow the hair to stand up quite as high as it does with back combing. Back combing makes you create higher fashion coiffures that will practically you can do most anything with it.
Uh-huh. Well, now let's talk a little bit about the permanent. Why do we need one?
Well, the reasons for a permanent are to give your hair, every hairstyle, body, control, and it helps maintain any line that you decide to put in.
Oh, I see. Well, now, what are the basic features of a permanent? What are the basic important things?
Well, first of all, I think you must first know what kind of a style you want, and it must be cut for this hairstyle. Secondly, shampoo the hair quite thoroughly to get all the natural oils out. And third, I think a wonderful hint is for people that take a little bit longer to wrap a permanent wave at home, to pat the ends with a little olive oil or castor oil, any kind of kitchen oil, to keep the ends from getting too curly.
It sounds like we're about ready for our permanent. Tell me, is there any difference between a home permanent and a salon permanent?
Actually, no. It's the hands that do it.
Speaking of hands, now are there any special little hints you can give us about winding the curls?
Yes, there's one very good hint. When you pick up the hair and after it's been saturated, don't pinch the hair together. Just keep it spread as the comb spreads it out, and very gently, without tugging, place that curl down.
Well, doesn't that make the curl looser?
No, the timing is what determines whether it's going to be a tight or a loose curl.
Oh, well, what do you mean by a body curl?
Well, I've made a test curl here. I'd like to show you. Did this a few minutes ago. And when you open up a curl and you kick it back, if it's 3/4 of an inch in the break, it's a loose curl. If it's a 1/2 inch, that's a body curl. And if it's a 1/4 of an inch break, that's a tight curl.
One last question. How permanent is a permanent?
Well, a permanent is a permanent as long as it's on your head. When you cut it off and it lands on the floor, it's no longer a permanent.
I see. Well, thank you so much, Julius, for taking some of the mystery out of hairstyling. This has been Julius Caruso, stylist for the Broadway and Hollywood stars and high society, and special consultant for Lilt Home Permanents.
Yeah, so maybe that's what I need as a permanent. I don't know. I might actually have to go into the clippers soon. Hair's getting in my eyes. So that film I got on eBay, and at some point, I don't know why I for some reason was buying a bunch of films about hair care. I don't know where I was going with it, but yeah, there you go. This next film is a compilation of short little ads for auto dealerships and cars from the 70s. And I got this with a giant batch of films from Memphis, Tennessee. It was mostly educational films, but the person I got it from also had something from a theatrical advertising service, which basically sold advertising in local theaters. And the idea is that while you were waiting for the movie to start, it would show on 16 millimeter ads for local things. And so I showed, not too long ago, I think I showed a bunch of bakery ones. And this one is an example of auto advertising. So the idea is that you would show this to potential advertisers in the theater. And you go to car dealerships and auto repair places and say, like, well, this is what we propose to do. You know, we'll have this national thing for this car, but then we'll put a thing at the end that advertises your specific business. So here's Autoline Demo Reel. No, I'm sorry, Autoline Reel Demo. There we go.
This is Pontiac's idea of what a small car should be. Pontiac's new Ventura 2. It's stingy with your gas money. It's tough and built to last. And even though it's got a small car price, Ventura 2 is loaded with Pontiac's style and stamina. Ventura 2 is Pontiac's idea of what a small car should be.
That looks pretty tough, Roy, for a car.
Pontiac's new Ventura 2. It's a cut above.
People are happy and smiling at Crown Pontiac, the area's newest and most modern Pontiac dealer. Crown's hand-picked staff takes pride in making people happy, whether it be helping you select one of the many new Pontiacs or a dependable pre-owned car, or solving your present automotive problems with trained specialists and the latest in electronic equipment. Our aim is to keep you smiling. Pontiac makes the car, Crown makes the difference. 5237 34th Street North.
This 1972 Buick Centurion is equipped with MaxTrack, an exclusive computerized system that controls rear wheel spin on slippery surfaces. Without MaxTrack, the rear wheels spin when our GM test driver floors it. But with MaxTrack on, rear wheel spin is controlled and the car takes off. MaxTrack is available on most new Buick models. 1972 Buick Centurion, something to believe in.
I'd like to tell you about some great auto assurance. It's brought to you by D&D Buick Pontiac. Part 1 of D&D's policy assures you of quality transportation. Buicks, Pontiacs, Opals, and GMC trucks. Part 2 of this assurance policy is D&D's complete GM-approved service. All you pay for this great assurance is a visit to D&D Buick Pontiac, 815 West Davis.
I'm being taken for a ride in a 72 Cricket. Over 3,000 welds assembled the body and frame as a solid unit, a unibody for strength and tightness. It's the way Chrysler Plymouth puts together every car body they make. You see, they're determined to build their cars to last longer than ever before, run better, too. Like this little 72 Plymouth Cricket. Isn't that the kind of car America wants?
This is where it all starts, with the More For You salesman at Southern Chrysler Plymouth, the most modern sales and service facility in this area. Southern Chrysler Plymouth comes through, keeping in stock several hundred new cars at all times. All body types, like Cricket, Duster, Roadrunner, Fury, Chrysler, and Imperial. If you prefer a late model used car, this is the place to come. All makes and models to choose from. Take advantage of this combination. An award-winning service department that believes service after the sale is tomorrow's reputation. Skilled body repair specialists and a completely computerized parts department. Just another of the great services at Southern Chrysler Plymouth, 901 South Main Street in High Point.
I'm Marcel Flambeau, international auto driving grade. Need a car, not a toy.
Well, Mr. Flambeau, this is the new Dodge Colt. It's got a Hemi engine, front disc brakes, and gets up to 30 miles per gallon.
It does?
Plus reclining bucket seats, adjustable steering column, flow-through ventilation, all standard.
But I ask you, can a man love this car?
Look at the sticker price.
Oh, a man can love this car.
Dodge Colt. For a little car, it's a lot of car.
Skilled hands and good service are all that's needed to be a success. At Ritchie Harris Dodgetown, we have that skill to service all that we sell. From transmissions to the paint shop, it's skill all the way. Let the good guys at Ritchie Harris put it your way, with a full line of new and used cars. We have it all at Ritchie Harris Dodgetown, 800 South 14th in Kingsville.
If they could see me now, that little gang of mine.
It's the 72 Cutlass S. Oldsmobile all the way. Roomy, trim, protective side guard beams in the doors, easy to handle, and priced so you can afford it.
What a step up! Holy cow, they'll never believe it if my friends could see me now. Yeah!
Now showing at Wilson Oldsmobile Cadillac, Columbus. Shop Wilson's new car supermarket, featuring the new MGs and the great fun-loving cars from American Motors. From a quality used car to the best in parts and service, it's Wilson Oldsmobile Cadillac, Columbus.
Cartier Jewelers is about to risk a rough diamond that could be worth $125,000 to test the ride of this new Mercury Marquis. Their man, Joseph Raffel, will attempt to split the stone while riding through New York City traffic. Struck precisely, the diamond could double in value. The slightest mistake, and it's worthless dust. Our speed, 35 miles an hour. How'd we do?
Perfect. Beautiful.
Mercury Marquis, with a ride that's steady as a rock. At the sign of the cat.
Lebanon is Mercury Town, and the leader is Lennox Lincoln Mercury, 328 West South Street. You'll find the best selection of automobiles and concerned salesmen able to meet your pocketbook demands. George Ferris, service manager at Lennox, will personally see that your car's ills are cured quickly and efficiently. Stop by today and see what we mean about Lennox Lincoln Mercury.
So lots of 70s lore in there. So that one with the Mercury Marquis was parodied by Saturday Night Live. Instead of a diamond cutter, it was a mohel who was doing a circumcision. So there you go. Let's see. At some point, we'll be able to leave our homes, and this film was made. It's an interesting film. Like I said, I like niche films. Films are meant for a very specific purpose. And this film was made specifically to show to kids who were about to go on a class trip. I guess that there was enough of a need to show kind of a preliminary film because kids were getting in trouble going on class trips. And so this one is Rules to View a Zoo By.
You know, being a squirrel here at the zoo is a pretty good life. If you know where to look, you can always find an extra peanut or two. And you get to watch all the people who come to see the animals. Hey, here comes Mrs. Braun in her class. Haven't seen her since last year. She sure had a well-behaved class. Wonder if her class made rules again like they did last year.
16 children want to go to the zoo. Then the zoo wins, and that's where we're going. Boys and girls, now that we've decided that we're going to go on a trip to the zoo, we have so that we can have a good time on our trip.
We need good rules to have a good trip. We need special rules because the zoo is so far away. If we didn't have rules, somebody might get hurt or they might get lost.
Of course they made rules. And now they and Mrs. Braun and the two mothers who came along to help her are ready to set out and see the animals.
Here comes the baby!
The zoo is even bigger than the children had imagined. No one seems to mind the walk. Oops. Hey, remember your rule.
Don't climb on the benches and the things, you might get hurt.
That's right. Come on. There's a lot more to see.
What's that? It looks like a horse with stripes.
It does too.
Hey, look, a camel ride.
Oh boy, the last thing before going home, everyone in the class is going to get a camel ride. But first things first. All that walking makes for healthy appetites. But don't forget.
And when we finish, we should throw our trash in the basket.
Very good. Now back to the animals.
Uh-oh, here he comes.
Sorry, big fella, but we have to go. There's still a lot more to see. I'd hate to have his meat bill.
Here comes the baby.
They're just like big kittens. Jimmy wants to stay behind and watch the lions. Listen to Tommy, Jim. Remember?
And we should always stay with our group.
Jimmy, go with the class. Jimmy, you've got to obey the rules. In trouble. I hope Mrs. Braun counts noses and finds out someone is missing. Poor Jimmy. Is he sorry he didn't stick to the rules? Hey, Mrs. Braun, over here. Finally. Jimmy promises Mrs. Braun that he'll never break the rules again. It's hard to say who's happier, Jimmy or his classmates. Okay now, let's hurry up so we can make the last camel ride. Just made it. Wait, what's the matter? Too late? You're kidding! sorry, kids, but all that time we lost looking for Jimmy. Poor Jimmy. He feels worse than anybody. Well, look, it was a pretty good day anyway. And I guess everybody learned something today about sticking to the rules. It's getting late. Time to go find something to eat before it gets dark.
I love that film. Jimmy, of course, has been traumatized socially. That was it. That was the moment where everybody hated Jimmy, and he never regained the status, and ended up working at the zoo. We all love to kind of create those narratives for these kids. The wonderful thing about this film is that the squirrel is narrated by Godfrey Cambridge. And Godfrey Cambridge was a comedian, African-American comedian, and he's done a couple of educational film voiceovers, but he also created the infamous Dead is Dead drug education film that is over the top, that traumatized bunches of people. I was getting email requests about it years ago until I finally found a copy. It is not something that I really can show on here. There's lots of footage of dead people who have overdosed, somebody who is going cold turkey on the toilet. Like, it's over the top. It's really quite something. And it was his kind of labor of love because he had lost people to drug abuse, and this was his attempt to try to educate. And it was shown to kids that were way too young, like kids in the 3rd grade that really shouldn't have been watching it. Anyway, so every time I see that squirrel talking, I think about him saying "dead is dead." Somehow, maybe doing a mix of the two narrations. All right, a question that we all have is what's under the hood. This film was made to educate people about simple car repair and what actually how their car works. Probably a precursor to actual shop in high school or in trade school. So here's what's under the hood.
What makes it go? And don't say ask a mechanic. Because if you know just a few fundamentals of how your engine turns gasoline into power and how that power gets from your engine to your wheels, incidentally identifying a few major parts and what they do, you're less likely to get stuck in embarrassing situations. You'll make much more sense to a mechanic and become an authority to your less knowledgeable friends. Remember, these things we'll cover are fundamentals. Some of them you'll already know, but perhaps you can gain by seeing how they work together with other things that may be less familiar. And anyway, it's only 10 minutes out of your life, so here we go. Let's begin with the car's power source, its engine. Gasoline and air mixed together form an explosive mixture. The basic job of the engine is to convert this explosive energy into motion. To contain the explosion, the engine uses a cylinder, and fitting snugly within the cylinder, a piston that slides up and down. Inside the cylinder, an electric spark ignites the compressed gasoline and air, and the hot gases from the explosion push the piston downward. The piston rod is connected to a crankshaft, which converts the up and down motion into rotary motion. The crankshaft then drives the rear wheels through various machinery, which we'll see later. Here is a different perspective on how the piston drives the crankshaft through the connecting rod. At the top of the cylinder are the valves, which let in the gasoline and air mixture. For increased power and smoothness, modern auto engines have a number of cylinders driving one crankshaft. Gasoline from the tank is pumped by the fuel pump to the engine's carburetor through the fuel lines. The carburetor mixes the gasoline with air to form the explosive mixture that drives the pistons. Here's a closer view of the carburetor. A linkage connects the accelerator pedal with a valve in the carburetor. Stepping on the gas opens this valve wider, increasing the gas flow and speeding up the engine. Easing off on the pedal reduces the flow and the engine slows down. Here on an actual engine are the counterparts of the fuel system just diagrammed. The fuel pump, the fuel line from pump to carburetor, and the carburetor itself with its air cleaner removed. Here is the linkage connecting the carburetor to the accelerator pedal. The engine's electrical system supplies the spark that fires the fuel mixture. As the engine rotates, it drives a generator which keeps the car's battery charged. The battery supplies electricity to the coil, which boosts the current to a voltage high enough to produce a spark, and then sends it through the distributor to the spark plugs located in the cylinders. The distributor distributes electrical current to the proper spark plug at the proper time. Inside the distributor is a rotor, which as it turns touches a series of contacts, one of which is wired to each spark plug. The points open and close as the rotor turns, interrupting the current to produce the fuel-igniting spark. Here again are the major parts of the engine's electrical system: the generator, the battery, the booster coil, distributor, and spark plugs. Now looking at an actual engine, here is the generator and the battery. Together at the rear of the engine are the coil, the distributor cap containing the contact swept by the rotor itself, and the points, which sometimes need adjustments. And finally, in the cylinder heads, the spark plugs. The engine on this model chassis contains nearly all the parts found in a working engine. Let's break it down to its fundamentals and then build it up again. Here's the heart of the engine, the cylinders and pistons. This engine, known as a V8, has two banks of 4 cylinders each, driving a common crankshaft. The camshaft, geared to the crankshaft, lifts and lowers the valves in the cylinders. Now the right and left cylinder heads, containing the valves themselves and the valve lifters. The distributor at the rear of the engine is also driven from the camshaft. Now the fan, the generator, and a part of the cooling system. Here, flashing lights simulate the firing of the spark plugs as the rotor supplies current to each in proper firing order. Continuing the build-up, here are the carburetor and the manifold. And finally, the air cleaner atop the carburetor. Here is a rear view showing how the pistons drive the crankshaft. And down through the plastic housing, we can see the gearing connecting the camshaft to the distributor. 4, 6, and 8-cylinder engines are standard today. This V8 configuration is very popular for its smoothness and power. Well, now we have an engine. Before we have an automobile, we must add a way to transmit the engine's power to the wheels, provide for supplying different amounts of power for starting, climbing steep hills and the like, and devise a means to stop the car. The machinery that transmits power to the wheels is called the power train. From the engine, these include the clutch, the transmission, the drive shaft with its universal joints, the rear axle, and the differential. A problem with early automobiles was how to keep the engine running while the car stood still. This is done by the clutch, which is basically two discs, one of which is attached to the engine, the other to the transmission. When the discs are held apart by pressing the clutch pedal, the car stands still. When they are brought slowly together, the car starts to move. Next in the powertrain is the transmission. By bringing different gear ratios into play, this car can be placed in low to start, shifted to second to accelerate, and put into high once cruising speed is reached. In most cars today, the work of both transmission and clutch is done by an automatic transmission, basically a fluid coupling and speed-sensitive shifting mechanism that simplifies driving to stepping on the gas to go and on the brake to stop. The drive shaft transmits the power from the transmission to the rear axle. This shaft, while rigid, is connected at either end by universal joints, and these allow it to bend, so to speak, while revolving. The drive shaft in this cutaway chassis has an extra universal joint in the middle to reduce the height of the tunnel running through the passenger compartment. The drive shaft transmits power to the rear axles through the differential. The rear axle is in two halves, and the gears inside the differential divide the power between these halves according to road conditions. For instance, in a left turn, the right wheel must travel further than the left, and so must turn faster. The differential compensates. Similarly, in a right turn, it lets the outside or left wheel turn faster. Stopping the car employs a hydraulic brake system. Pressing the brake pedal pushes a plunger into the master cylinder, which in turn forces the hydraulic brake fluid through the brake lines running to the four wheels. The pressure transmitted to the wheel cylinder forces the brake shoes against the inside of a drum attached to the wheel. The resulting friction brings the wheel to a stop. Here is a model of the brake system using water as the hydraulic fluid for this demonstration. The hydraulic system tends to equalize the braking force between the four wheels and multiplies the pressure of the driver's foot for easy braking. A very small amount of travel is needed to bring the brake shoe into contact with the brake drum. We have looked at the basic systems of the modern automobile. The engine, which converts the energy of the fuel into rotary movement. The powertrain that transmits this movement to the car's wheels. And the brake system that enables the car to stop. Of course, literally hundreds of variations and improvements on these systems are found today. Power assists, safety devices, ways of getting more power and efficiency out of the modern car. Many ways to make driving easier and safer. Still, the fundamentals remain much the same and are unlikely to change in the near future. In case of trouble, understanding what makes it go can save time, trouble, expense, and hazard, and give you a lot of satisfaction. The satisfaction of being in charge of your car.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. I love a refresher on how a car works. And that little visible car with all the gears visible is pretty awesome. This next film is a wonderful how-to film. And it shows how to make a fire. And I want you to try to guess how old the kids are in this film. So, let's take a look.
Saturday turned out bright and sunny. We went on a picnic.
Tommy, Helen, George, and I. We wanted to make a fire, so Helen and George went to gather wood, and I went for some fresh water. Tommy, of course, tried to be helpful, but he was headed for trouble. To start our fire, George crumpled paper, because paper catches fire easily. Then he put on some twigs. Twigs get hot and burn more quickly than bigger branches. Then still bigger pieces, because it takes even more heat to start them burning. George piled them loosely so plenty of air could get to the fire. And finally, George struck the match. Really, he didn't strike the match, he rubbed it, because rubbing makes the match hot enough to catch fire. Rubbing things together makes heat. You don't believe it, do you, Tommy? Well, try it for yourself. Rub your hands together, Tommy. That's it. Rub them hard and fast. That's it. Makes them hot, doesn't it? Long ago, before matches were invented, the Indians rubbed two pieces of wood together to make fire. The Pilgrim Fathers made fire by rubbing flint and steel. Our own fire needed more wood, so George put on logs. And, of course, Tommy wanted to help. Too many logs may smother a fire by shutting off the air. You see, three things are needed for fire: heat, as from a match, something to burn like paper and wood, and lots of air. And Tommy didn't believe that either. So we decided to prove it to Tommy, that air is necessary for fire. First, we found some jars and cleaned them in a brook. An old candle from our knapsack furnished the fire. What about that, Tommy? So then we decided to find out what would happen with different amounts of air. In the smallest jar with the least air, the flame went out first. then the middle-sized jar. And the flame in the big jar with the most air lasted longest. Of course, our fire had plenty of air, and the best part of the picnic was putting the fire to work. The rest of us were too busy eating to notice what Tommy was doing. And then, like lots of things, just when you think everything is fine, I sent Tommy for water, and Helen and George for sand to smother the flames. In no time at all, we had the fire under control. Tommy himself knew he'd done a dangerous thing. One tree can make 1,000,000 matches. One match can destroy 1,000,000 trees. One small match. And then a fire. Soon it's out of control. It spreads through the forest, from the grass to the trees. It leaps from tree to tree, a raging giant, driving all living things from their homes, leaving behind it a land empty and useless for animals and for man. Almost always from somebody's carelessness with one small match. Before going home, we cleaned up. We wanted to leave the table and grounds the way we found them. George scattered the smoldering wood so there wouldn't be anything to burn. Put on sand to shut out the air. Finally, I put on the rest of the water to cool the wood so it couldn't burn. We all had a lot of fun, all right, and all of us learned a little more about our oldest and best friend, a friend that can be our worst enemy, fire.
What a wonderful film. I love the pacing of it. It's really great. Plus, you know, it shows how a fire is made and talks about what's great about a fire, and then shows how a fire goes horribly wrong, thanks to Tommy. That was a wonderful little thing. It was not made by Cornet or Encyclopedia Britannica. It was made by a smaller company. Shown Shake Hands with Danger. This is another film made by Caterpillar Heavy Equipment. And it's about... Actually, what's surprising is I have quite a few safety films involving forklifts. Forklifts must have really caused a lot of damage in warehouses because they're so great, but they're also, they have these giant forks that are, up high that could kill, mangle somebody. There's also supposedly there's the German forklift safety film, which I think borders on parody. It might just be a parody because somehow a chainsaw is involved. But this is a real forklift safety film from our friends at Centron and Caterpillar. Enjoy.
Adjust the focus until the picture is sharp. Now adjust the sound to a normal volume.
In the coming months, at lift truck rallies like this around the world, top professional lift truck operators will be competing to determine who is the best. Contestants negotiate a loaded truck through an obstacle course simulating actual job conditions. The object? Run the course in the fastest time with the fewest errors. The pressure is intense. The difference between winning and losing measured in fractions of inches and tenths of seconds. This event is won by Jack Copley of TRW's Replacement Division. He will go on to earn the title of International Grand Champion. It's in recognition of the outstanding professional ability he developed and perfected on the job. Because winning in this competition requires the same skills a lift truck operator needs every day at work. The same thorough knowledge of his machine, the same safety sense, the same judgment and concentration that spell efficiency. With these qualities, these skills, on your job, you win. More security, recognition, the pride of knowing you're in demand as a real pro. Without these skills, sooner or later, you lose all those things. That's the reason for this film, to remind you of what it takes to be a winner instead of a loser at a job that's never easy. If you're going to operate lift trucks, there's one thing to keep in mind. You can either be a winner on the job or a loser. The winners are the professionals. They make it look easy because they know what they're doing. Chances are they've learned to operate their lift trucks in training courses required by OSHA regulations. The losers, on the other hand, make the mistakes. What separates the winners from the losers? To get that answer, we asked champion Jack Copley to share his experience, techniques he uses in both competition and on the job.
No, I don't have any secrets in my driving. I go by the book. It's very basic. See, most operators are concerned first about the condition of the machine that they're driving. In fact, you can spot the good operators before they ever even start up, by the way they check the truck over.
The fact is, most mechanical problems can be caught and corrected before they develop into something serious. Sometimes it's a problem that can be seen, and sometimes it can be heard. Something is obviously wrong in the way this lift truck is running. The operator should have checked the air service indicator every day, but didn't. Result? The company loses valuable production time. And the operator loses. He now walks instead of rides. When more than one operator uses a truck, each should be particularly cautious. For example, the operator on the first shift forgets to put the battery on charge after running the truck. The next operator assumes the battery level is okay. Then the truck is used in a high lifting job, the kind of job that takes a lot of extra power. You can guess what happens then. The power fails at the worst possible time. Result? A blocked aisle and a lift truck down for several hours.
Sure, operating a lift truck is different. It's fast, it's maneuverable, it can get away from you if you're not careful. To me, developing good operating habits is a heck of a lot more important than speed. You concentrate on safe techniques, and speed will come with experience.
In operating a lift truck, the idea is to match speed to conditions. When taking a turn in a tight aisle, keep the inner wheel close to the corner. Slow down to start the turn, and watch the rear end swing. Of course, there are potential hazards in any warehouse or factory, and these are a constant challenge to the operator. The three most common hazards facing an operator are these: people walking or working in the same area, other truck traffic, and surface conditions. Let's replay those situations, this time showing what should have been done. First, slow down and use the horn. You can figure that whenever there are people, someone sometime is going to step before they look. Second, before heading into a blind corner, again, slow down and always sound the horn. Third, take it easy around rough or slick spots. The way an operator takes a ramp also marks him as either a winner or a loser. This way, the load falls off. Or if the load is heavy enough, it may shift the center of gravity and the operator loses steering control. He could lose a lot more than that. When driving up or down an incline, keep the load on the up side. This cradles the load more safely against the backrest, so it is less likely to fall off, and it keeps the weight on the steer wheels. When it comes to lifting and stacking, notice how the professional overhoists the load slightly, then eases it down into position with gravity. The amateur, on the other hand, tries to raise the load to the exact height. On electric trucks, this puts extra wear on the contact points and motors, wastes power, and... oh yes, always release the lever when the cylinders reach their limit. holding on to cylinders against the stops causes added wear on the hydraulic system and waste power.
When the schedule gets tight, when you get pressed for time, it can be a real temptation to try to carry bigger and heavier loads. And when you do that, well, you take unnecessary chances. I mean, why should you ask for trouble?
Each lift truck has specific limitations: height, weight, lifting capacity. Exceed the design limits, and sooner or later, you're going to lose. This operator made the right decision to carry a smaller but safer load. Some operators try to carry heavier loads by adding counterweights, but this can overstress the machine. And some counterweights can be downright dangerous. When it comes to operating a lift truck with a special attachment, bear this in mind. You know your truck. You know its limits and how the attachment fits your machine. No good operator will use equipment in an application about which he has serious doubts. When a truck and attachment are used for another type of job, the operator is asking for trouble. A push-pull attachment works well in this application. But special tools require special care. Use an attachment only for its designed application. And be wary of attachments that threaten the stability of your lift truck.
Driving a lift truck takes concentration. Every time you begin to let up, start thinking about something else, that's when something happens. I think a lot of my safety record. It's my living.
Distractions are a part of everyday hazards for an operator. Here's a sure loser in any organization: the cowboy operator. There's a lot of things that could be said about this type of operator. He endangers himself and everyone around him. He abuses equipment, destroys goods, and damages property. Fortunately, for everyone concerned, he usually doesn't last too long. To be a winner on the job, then, an operator needs these qualities: knowledge of the machine and of the job conditions, a strong sense of safety for yourself and others, consistency, steady, error-free driving. Remember, this wins more points than speed. Concentration, the ability to keep your attention on the job at hand. And finally, pride. If you operate efficiently, with the least amount of effort to yourself and your truck, then you'll be known and respected as a professional. You may not win one of these events, but you'll be a winner where it counts: on the job.
That was great. Lift trucks. There you go. There's your generic term for forklifts. Yeah, yeah, big fan. All the specialized things with the giant paper rolls, the little like fingers that would grab, or the hand that would grab and then rotate it. The thing that would pull, I guess it was some sort of plastic or something that would pull all the, there's a lot of great stuff in there. I mean, let's face it, watching heavy equipment move things is still really exciting. It's exciting as a kid, and it still kind of makes me interested in this. Thanks for joining us today, and thanks for having lunch with us today. Tomorrow, I hope to have Mark Quigley from UCLA. He's a film archivist. He and I have met at conferences, and we've talked at length about different types of films that we like, and I'm going to try to pull some of the films, some of his favorite films. Some of them have a religious bent. Some of them have an atomic safety bent. Anyway, so that'll be 1 o'clock tomorrow. Thanks for spreading the word, telling friends, sharing this with other people. If you're on YouTube, please like this. I think that helps get the word out. And maybe as far as YouTube telling people that it's happening, I'm not sure why that's not working or why that does work. And same with Facebook. They're like mysterious in how they promote and what they make available to people to tell them. But this is something we do for lunch, 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and this is wrapping up the end of week 8, and we'll just kind of keep going because I have lots and lots and lots of films to show you. I'm going to try to come up with a way so that I don't repeat showing films, because that's beginning to be a problem where I'm like, oh, I'd like to show this, and I'm like, wait a minute, did I show that already? So I might enlist your help at some point once I figure out how to do that. But if you like what you saw, go to avgeeks.com. If you like to contribute to Patreon, it's a way that we put money towards buying more films, also kind of buying splicing tape and buying hard drives so that we can do this more. There's all sorts of little things that we can spend money on related to collecting 27,000 films. One of the big things is we're trying to do move some shelving so we can combine 2 storage units into one. That's kind of happening with my assistant right now while I'm stuck here at home. But anyways, happy to see all of you. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for your comments and your eyeballs. And I will see you again tomorrow, hopefully. Take care.